Today I'm going to try and tackle putting in the new inlays into the neck. The old inlays popped out pretty easily, and once I've taken them out, I can see that they're just about 1 millimeter on the dot. The new ones, however, are about 1.5 millimeters, and so what I have is a situation where I'm either going to glue these in place and then have to sand them down 1 millimeter, or 0.5 millimeter, excuse me, or I can try and lower the fretboard a little bit. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to fall on this one. It's certainly a lot easier to sand plastic than it is to accurately chisel out 0.5 millimeter in this kind of awkward trapezoid shape. So I'm probably going to try the chiseling first just to see, but it might just be the case where I glue these first, use a leveling beam to sand them down, and then go from there. What I'm doing right now is trying to clean up any of the remaining wood putty or filler or whatever was used on the edges. That way I can see exactly how big the hole is and see how the inlay will fit. Looking at this first one, there's no way I'm going to try and take this down 0.5 millimeter. This inlay fits within the hole perfectly right now. And so what I'm going to do is use some CA glue to put this into place, and then I will go back and do, well, I'll do all of them first, and then I'll see what gaps remain, think about how I'm going to put that filler in, and then I'll resurface the entire fretboard so that they are level, flush to the fretboard. My plan of attack with the super glue is actually going to be pretty simple. So I'm going to flood the area here with super glue. I'm going to put the piece down, kind of line it up as best I can. And then from everything I've seen, wax paper doesn't stick to CA glue. And so I'll just put this down here and then use my clamp here. The soft plastic pieces here on the jaw are just about as big as the inlay, and so I'll just lightly clamp it down until the glue sets. So hopefully it'll give a nice tight bond for the inlay. I'm going to use medium viscosity. I got a kit that had almost water-like consistency, medium viscosity, and then I also have some black glue for filling in things. And so literally just gonna try and fill this area in. Just a touch of pressure. You don't need to do a whole lot here. It's the super glue that's going to do the work. And so I'll just let that sit for a minute or two and then kind of keep going up the neck. And got lucky that this inlay fits completely within the already cut out area. And so I'll glue this in as well. This one's probably already pretty much set in place. I'll move this to time lapse so that I can do all these in a sped up way. But ultimately I'll take my 1/4-inch chisel, clean out any of the glue remains, and then super glue, and then level out the inlays to the fretboard. all of the inlays are now glued into place. For the most part, I guess these first 7 frets, I was able to use my clamps to actually hold it down, and so those got 5 minutes or so worth of dry time. And then when I took the wax paper off, I used the accelerator just to make sure that any remaining glue was sort of dried up. When I got up here to the 12th fret, you started to see a little bit more of an issue. The neck is now curving, and then of course, at the 15th and 17th fret, you can't really get in there at all. And so I held those in place with wax paper and just my fingers for, I don't know, a minute each, and then sprayed them with accelerator as well. And for the most part, the inlays fit. There was just a handful of times where I needed to use my hobby knife, where Gibson didn't actually, well, I don't want to blame Gibson since these are replacement inlays, but the replacement inlays are much more aggressive with the curve and the point. And so I just very lightly, scored out the area to let that point fit in, so that I didn't have to sand the edges of the inlays at all. And so even though I think this is probably, pretty good, I'm going to let this sit for an hour or so, let the glue that's underneath the inlays, really solidify and cure up. It took me the better part of an hour, but I've now taken the inlays and used a razor blade and card scraper to scrape them approximately flush to the fretboard. I'm still going to go back and level the fretboard with a leveling beam, and so I'll get another opportunity to bring the inlays level with the fretboard going this direction. But they are pretty close right now, and one thing I am really happy about is the inlays that I bought were almost perfect size, and so it appears that there will be much less need for filler around the outside than the original inlays had. But one sort of slightly disappointing thing you can't really do anything about is you can see the color change here in some of the areas. By using the razor blade to make it flush, I've effectively scraped a little bit of the patina off. Nothing you can do about that. I mean, the inlays themselves are bright white, so it's obvious that our replacement has occurred relative to the golden color around the outside. I've spent about 20 minutes with this leveling beam that I just made out of a 3/4 inch piece of plywood in the factory edge. And I used 80 grit sandpaper to go across the entire fretboard. And what I was looking to do was not necessarily take off any specific amount, but actually where the super glue was left over, to me indicated that I still had a low spot relative to the inlays. And so by going back and forth over this a considerable number of times, I've now sanded off all of the leftover super glue that I had used, and now it's a lot more obvious where I need to do a little bit of filling. And so I can use my black CA glue to kind of fill in those areas, let them dry, and then I'll go over the fretboard again with my leveling beam with a much higher grit, so that I can just sand over and smooth everything out. But yeah, the fretboard is already quite smooth. I had scraped off some of the patina from before, and so it was looking uneven, but now it's back to a consistent state, and It's going to look really good. I drop filled a couple of areas around the inlays that had some gaps still, and all I can say is, this black CA glue is a miracle. From here, you certainly can't see it, and I'll see if I can get it in front of the camera. I mean, the fact that, even from this distance, you really can't see the gaps in the inlays is just amazing. And I'm using black. In this case, I'm happy that I used black. I don't think using brown might have actually worked. This rosewood already has a very dark streakiness to it. But yeah, I couldn't be more pleased. The neck here is now, completely ready for frets, which I'll do in another video. So thanks for watching.